All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, so welcome. My name is Ron Tolliver. I am the Community Involvement Coordinator for the site. Um, and tonight we're going to have a public meeting and we're going to talk about the Armstrong World Industries Operable Units 1 and 2 proposed plan for remedial action. All right, the site is located in Macon, Georgia. All right, we're going to get started. Next slide. All right, so we'll start off with introductions and then we'll have the presentation. And then following the presentation, we'll also have the question and answer session. All right, so after I introduce these organizations that are in support of our current and future cleanup work at the site, we will go through the presentation and then our question and answer session. Next slide. So these are our site contacts. So these are the support personnel for the site. EPA is our lead agency, and we oversee the potentially responsible parties' role in this cleanup. Our project managers for EPA are in an oversight role during this cleanup. And of course, I'm Ron Tolliver, your community involvement coordinator. And then your remedial project managers are Brian Ferrier. If you want to come on camera, Brian, Anita Saha, and Peter Johnson. So waiver. Okay, and then we also have our support personnel as well from the state of Georgia, with Tazan Saeed, and then also from the Georgia Department of Public Health, Faith Flack Walker and Franklin Sanchez. So if there are any other organizations that are present tonight and would like to be acknowledged, you can do so at this time. You can put your information in the chat. We can acknowledge you at this time, or if you'd like to say a word. Okay. All right, so we'll get started. All right, now just let's go over a few of our meeting instructions. I do want to make sure that everyone can access the meeting and can uh, have their proper viewing of this meeting. So those of you who are on the phone, if you would press *6. If you're calling the phone, you press *6 to mute and unmute. *9 as well to raise your hand. So we're going to utilize the raise your hand functions. There's an icon tray at the bottom of your screen. So those of you who may not have used Zoom before, there's an icon tray. When you hover your mouse over the bottom of the screen, there should be an icon tray. And then you should be able to select the raise your hand function. And we will acknowledge you during the Q&A session. Okay, and there's also for audio, there's a join audio. So once you come on to and join the meeting, you need to make sure that your audio, you join the audio and connect with the meeting through your speakers. We also have closed captioning that's available for those of you who need closed captioning. That icon is in the tray as well. And then the Q&A session, we will facilitate that towards the end. So during the Q&A session, our EPA personnel will acknowledge those questions and comments that are in the chat. And then also through the use of the raise your hand function. We ask that you all stay muted until it is your turn to be acknowledged. And then you can unmute yourself if you would like a follow-up question or a comment during that portion. We will go in order from which the hands were raised, and we'll go in that order. All right, and then we also have a transcriptionist that will be capturing all of your questions and comments during this meeting. So if you have a question or comment and you would like for it to be addressed formally, okay, we ask that you would state your name and spell it for the transcriptionist to capture, or you can make sure it's in the on your make sure your name is on your ID. make sure it's spelled correctly so the transcriptionist can capture that and that information. And then we'll respond formally to your comments with that information. We'll respond formally. Say after questions and comments have been acknowledged we'll end the meeting, and the report from this transcriptionist will be used to formally address any of the questions and comments that were received during our comment period. So with that, let's talk about that comment period, which is a very important part of our meeting. So during the comment period, that officially begins tonight. All right, and the purpose of this comment period is to receive input from you all in the communities that have been impacted by our cleanup plan. We would like to know things from your perspective. All right, so we'll formally, like I said before, we'll formally address those comments in our decision-making documents. One of them is called the responsiveness summary. All right, and then together they'll be put together in what we call an administrative record. Once everything has been finalized, these documents will be available on our website for the Armstrong World Industries Superfund site. All right, and you may access this website at home or in the information repository for the site. And that repository is located here at the Middle Georgia Regional Library. And that's at 180 Washington Avenue in Macon, Georgia. You'll have access to the internet there and obtain those documents. And so if you have any questions or concerns, you feel free to reach out to me and I can help you with that. All right, and with that being said, we'll begin the presentation, and then after the presentation, again, we'll have the Q&A session where you can answer your questions. And while the presentation is going on, you may access the chat feature where you can submit any comments or questions that you have during the presentation, and we'll acknowledge them during the Q&A session. So let's begin the presentation. As your community involvement coordinator, one of my roles is to help you understand the Superfund process. This process is required by a law called CERCLA. This slide shows those milestones associated with the Superfund decision-making process. Currently, we're at the proposed plan stage. This is highlighted red. The proposed plan is a cleanup strategy that has been developed after completing the previous milestones on this slide. In 2019, responsible parties at the site began the remedial investigation for operable Unit 2, after which the feasibility study was finalized in late 2023. A remedial investigation and feasibility study is just a process that defines the nature and extent of contamination while assessing risks to human health and the environment. Now that a cleanup remedy has been chosen, we're presenting it to you for input before we finalize our decision. After that, the responsible parties will conduct the remedial design before doing the actual cleanup themselves, or what we'll call the remedial action. Again, tonight's meeting is for public comment. Public comment is important for feedback throughout this decision-making process. With that, I'll turn it over to EPA's project managers, Peter Johnson and Anita Saha. They'll explain a little more detail about the information that these proposed cleanup plan remedies are based on. Anita?
Thank you, Ron. I'm Anita. I'm one of the EPA assigned project manager for the site. As Ron mentioned, proposed plan is an important milestone for the Superfund process. EPA proposes cleanup options, also known as preferred remedies, during the proposed plan phase. This slide shows the important parts of today's proposed plan. I will summarize you some of these topics and explain to you how they relate to you and the entire Superfund process. Let's begin. Now, I am having a little bit of technical issues. Let me
see if we can. Okay.
Yeah. Let's start with the history of the site.
There we go.
Since 1948 to present, Armstrong World Industries Site, or AWI for short, manufactured ceiling tiles. AWI began disposing general and industrial trash, old equipment, and excess bark and scrap wood in the remote landfill in 1960s. Another landfill, the former Macon Naval Ordnance Landfill, or FMNOL for short, was used for disposal of solid waste, munition, used parts, and construction debris. In 1977, Georgia Environmental Protection Division closed both of these landfills and placed soil covers. Another landfill, the Woodyard landfill, was addressed by Georgia EPD too by putting a clay cap. After these work were completed, further evaluation were needed. Georgia EPD determined that more resources were needed to protect the human health and the environment, and the site was listed for national priority listing in 2011. After that, EPA capped wastewater treatment plant landfill in 2016 and conducted some investigative studies. EPA found the contaminants of concern at these sites are PCB, polychlorinated biphenyl, cadmium, copper, and lead. Today, we are here to present what cleanup options or preferred remedies are available for OU2. This site investigation and cleanup are paid by several responsible parties. Now, I will explain how the cleanup at this site are divided. At AWI, cleanup work has been divided into two areas. These areas are called operable unit, or OU in short. OU1 is a landfill. It has a barrier wall and an engineered soil cover cap. EPA will also be placing restriction for groundwater use, land use, and any activity that may disturb the cap and the wall. These kind of restrictions are known as institutional control, or IC. Now we will talk about OU2, shown in the yellow dashed border. This is the focus for this proposed plan. OU2 includes two landfill, explosive demolition area, Rocky Creek, and fish sampling. Now Peter will explain the OU2 site setting. Off to you, Peter.
Thanks, Anita. As Ron mentioned earlier, my name is Peter Johnson, and I'm one of the EPA remedial project managers that work on this site. Here are some photos of the second OU that we are addressing in this proposed plan. The lower right image with the green dot shows the number and sizes of the trees within the landfills and gives a good sense of how heavily wooded this area really is. Also, you can see from these photos, much of OU2 is prone to frequent flooding and is located in wetlands. Now we will be describing the remedial investigation portion of the presentation, which includes sampling results, risks to human health and the environment, and fish sampling. After a site is listed on the National Priorities List, or the NPL, a remedial investigation is performed at the site. At this phase, EPA collects data to characterize site conditions, assess risks to human health and the environment, and evaluate the costs of treatment technologies that are being considered. During the remedial investigation, OU2 was divided into 21 smaller areas known as sampling units to efficiently address the contamination. These sampling units, or SUs, are shown on the figure here on the left. The primary concerns were reported at SU7 and the landfills located on the upper left portion of this figure. PCBs were reported at the highest levels in soil at SU7. Just southwest of SU7, a soil cover had been placed atop the landfills in 1977, but much of this has since eroded away. During the remedial investigation, which helps us identify the contaminants of concern, we look at how these contaminants might pose a risk to the public and the surrounding environment. Two site-specific risk assessments were conducted for AWI OU2, a human health risk assessment and an ecological or an environmental risk assessment. Anita and I will review these in the upcoming slides. Over to you, Anita.
Thank you, Peter. Now I will be explaining the result for the risk assessment. Risk assessment results are the driver for a site cleanup. The results for the human health shows no current risk, but non-cancer risks are present for workers if the area is to develop into a commercial space in future. Also, there is a risk for insect-eating birds from the soil and sediments. Now, we're going to talk about the fish sampling data that were part of the remedial investigation. Fish sampling at this area was first conducted during 1996 to 1998 by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. During that time, a limited amount of fish were collected and sampled. Unacceptable levels of polychlorinated biphenyl, or PCB, were found in fish. So an extensive fish sampling was conducted during this remedial investigation phase from 2019 to 2020. 357 fish were collected in 3 areas shown in the slide. Upstream area shown in yellow, site shown in green, downstream in pink. Now the results show PCBs in fish have declined significantly, approximately 80%, since the limited fish sampling was conducted in the late 1990s. EPA now advises that public should avoid only channel catfish and suckerfish from the Rocky Creek down gradient to Houston Road because these 2 bottom feeder fish had the highest level of PCBs among all the fish sampled. This is the agenda back again. We have completed till the remedial investigation portion. Now Peter will be describing the feasibility study portion and explaining the cleanup goals and the preferred remedies for SU7 and the landfills. Off to you, Peter.
Hey, thanks, Anita. This is Peter Johnson again, and I am now going to review the Remedial Action Objectives, or RAOs, at OU2. RAOs are cleanup goals that provide a general description of what a cleanup will accomplish. The figure on the right here shows our areas of focus for this proposed plan. SU7 is in pink, and the landfills are highlighted in blue and green. So let's now review the remedial alternatives for the SU7 sampling unit shown here in pink. So before we discuss cleanup options, we need to talk about the action areas. SU7 was divided into 3 portions or action areas based on PCB soil cleanup concentrations. Action Area 3 on the right was preferred. Action Area 3 is the biggest of the 3 action areas and will remove all PCB contaminated soil greater than 25 parts per million. This will lower the risk for insect-eating birds and the future industrial worker. So to better picture this, a part per million is similar to putting 1 drop of water from an eyedropper into 10 gallons of water. PCBs reported in SU7 at concentrations over 900 parts per million. And this cleanup will remove PCBs in soil at concentrations greater than 25 parts per million. So here's a table showing the comparison of the SU7 remedial alternatives that we reviewed on the previous slide, except for option 1, which is the no action taken remedy. We've highlighted in red on the right option 6, the preferred remedy, which reduces risk to acceptable levels and achieves the remedial action objectives by removing contaminated soils. The cost to implement this cleanup is approximately $3.27 million. However, this is on the lower end of the cost range, so this cleanup may exceed this amount. Because potential risk in SU7 and the landfills are different, a separate cleanup alternative was needed to address the landfills. These remedial alternatives for the remote and former Macon Naval Ordnance landfills, shown here in blue and green, will be discussed in the upcoming slides. Here's a table showing the comparison of the remedial alternatives, or cleanups, for the landfills, except for option 1, which is the no action taken option. Our preferred cleanup is option 2, outlined right here in the middle in red, which repairs the existing soil cover. This was selected because it offers protection of human health and the environment, it achieves our cleanup objectives, and there would be minimal tree removal with a quicker habitat recovery and potentially less exposure to workers implementing the cleanup. The option 2 cleanup is estimated to cost approximately $4.8 million. So here's a list of criteria that we used when evaluating the cleanup options for SU7 and the landfills. It is actually required by law that these 9 evaluation criteria be used when reviewing and evaluating cleanup options. The analysis of alternatives reflects the scope and complexity of site problems and alternatives being evaluated and considers the relative significance of the factors within each criteria. Please note that under modifying criteria, we see state and community acceptance. So while we are talking about our preferred remedies here in this presentation, the final decision is not made without giving the state and community, you all, the opportunity to weigh in. So please, if you have any questions or comments, please submit these to us no later than July 1st. In summary, here are the 2 preferred cleanup alternatives for the SU7 sampling unit and the landfills and the rationale of why these were selected. For SU7, the preferred method is option 6, which includes the removal of PCBs and soils at concentrations greater than 25 parts per million, backfilling with clean soil, and implementing institutional controls. Our rationale for this selection is shown here in the bulleted list. Under option 6, cleanup levels will be reduced to ecological and human protective levels, and it will be effective long term. For the landfills, the preferred method is option 2, which includes restoring and repairing the existing soil cover, installing fencing, and implementing institutional controls. This alternative also offers a greater protection of the natural habitat that provides better flood and storm hazard reduction and better erosion control. This is also the more sustainable green option over option 3. Again, please reach out to us no later than July 1st of this year with any input or feedback that you may have about the cleanup at AWI OU2. And now I will turn it over to Ron. Ron?
All right, so our next steps. So now that you've heard our proposed plan, now it's time to talk about the next steps. So right now we are in our comment period. And so these are the dates for the comment period from May 30th, which is tonight, to July 1st. During this comment period, we want you all to submit your comments formally. So if you have any questions or comments regarding our proposed plan, the plan that you just heard about, we want you to officially submit them to us, or you can comment here. You can, during our Q&A session, we can capture your comments or questions on this presentation and during this meeting tonight. That will also go into our responsiveness summary where we will officially respond to those. Okay, after that period is over, then we'll have a record of decision. So that record of decision will be signed after that comment period and after we address your comments. We'll have that signing for that, and that will be our official document to start the next few steps. And then we'll have a remedial design, which will design the cleanup plan. And then we also will have the remedial action, which is where we're going to go out and perform the cleanup. And that's when we will come back to you and we'll send out fact sheets in the mail. I know some of you probably have gotten your fact sheets in the mail. I got some calls from you. So we'll send out those fact sheets again. And if we need to have another meeting, we can do that as well. But we'll definitely send a fact sheet out to let you know what to expect during this remedial action. And those will be our next steps. Okay, next slide. All right, and that comes to the end of our presentation portion. Now we'll have our Q&A session. Now, hopefully you all gained a lot of knowledge and information about EPA's process, Superfund process. I hope you all know it very well. And hopefully that it was explained to you what we're going to be doing in Armstrong, down in Macon. And if you have any input from your perspective on what you saw, at this time, we would ask that you would comment now. You can use your raise your hand function on your tray, your icon tray at the bottom, and then we can acknowledge you. Or if you'd like to type in the chat, if you have any comments or questions. The website here is on the page as well, along with Peter and Anita's contact information. So if you have any questions or concerns after this meeting, you can also contact us and we can address your comments or concerns. Okay. So at this time, we'll have our Q&A session. Those of you who are on the phone, I don't know if anyone's called in, but if you're on the phone, you press *6 to unmute and *9 to do the raise your hand function. Okay. And with that being said, we will go to any comments. So this is the time. Those of you who have a comment or question about anything we presented tonight, you can do so at this time. All right.
Ron, I'm not seeing anything or
Don't see
any.
anything. Okay. All right, Zaria. Thank you. So I guess that means we did a good job, Peter and Anita. And
We do
with
have a raised hand.
oh,
Hold
there
on.
we go. Okay. Miss Redmond, I'll acknowledge you now.
Nah,
Yes, ma'am.
you're my name.
Yes, ma'am. They know you. They know who you are.
Yes, we know you, Miss Redmond.
All right. I want to say, how far you all gonna come up and clean it up out there in Limo State?
Can you repeat that again so we can?
How far you all gonna be cleaning up out there in Limo State?
Oh, are you talking about the area? How much we're going
Yeah.
to cover?
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to go back to that slide, Peter, Anita? And you can kind of explain where the boundaries of where we're going to clean up. Can y'all do that for Miss Redmond?
Yeah. Hey, Ms. Redmond, thanks for the question. We've got a couple slides
Let's
here
start with the history of the
that
site.
I think will be helpful. If you can you see the figure on the screen now that highlights the SU7, the orange there, the green and the blue?
Yeah, but I couldn't tell too much what. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Up there, 4221 Tramiel Avenue. Okay, up there, the house up there, which I done got rid of it. There, we had a lot of damage up in the ground part up
After
there.
a site,
And you could see, you could smell in them area up in there. There's a lot of health hazards up in that area.
Okay. Thank you for submitting that, Miss Redmond. If you could get me that address, and then we can.
4221.
Okay. 4221. 4221.
Tramiel. Uh-huh.
4221 Tramiel Avenue.
Okay, 4221 Tramiel.
Okay.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't live there now.
Okay.
I don't
You
live
just
there
want
now.
us to take a look at it, though.
Yes.
Okay.
It
Yes, ma'am.
needs to be tenanted too. I don't know how it is out there now. I hadn't lived out there over a year now.
Okay. All
It
right.
has a lot of problems. A lot of health problems out in that area, right in that area there.
during the
Yes, ma'am. We'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Okay.
Do
Okay,
y'all know
thank
of
you.
any health issues that could be the people in that area should be concerned about?
So the way that we do it is we work with the Department of Public Health. They do a lot of studies. They do studies on health trends in neighborhoods, and so they would be more likely to be able to answer that question. But what we're doing now, we're really kind of focused in on this particular cleanup. So the Department of Public Health, I did have their contact information. If you have, they're on that first slide that we had. So they could let you know about any trends and health trends going on in the area. So they would be the ones to contact about that.
So you
So
don't know if the cleanup that you all are working on, you don't know if it affect that area then, I guess.
if it affects the outside the area that we just showed, is that what you're asking?
Right, because I can't really tell whether the area's in Linmo Estate or not.
Okay.
So based on your drawing and what we could actually see, because it's really small, She can't
Okay.
really tell whether it affects how far it really affects. And a lot of people out there has like, you know, fruit trees and pecan trees and stuff like that. So if it's anything in the ground, that could be causing issues, you know,
Okay.
because like mom had a lot of pecan trees out there, tons of pear trees. And so, you know, with everybody out there picking up those
Let's
things,
start with the history.
that could be issues.
Okay. Okay. So we can look into how those are being impacted, those
Right.
trees. Okay.
So
Sure.
and the
Do you have
fall,
like some addresses, the addresses of those? You want to put those in the chat or
I know, all I know is where mom was. And so anything around that area, the one that she just gave you, 42.
okay.
And I could try to put it in the chat here in a second.
Okay, okay. All right, we could take a look at it. All right.
Any more questions?
Okay, somebody's talking about Canberra. I don't know if it's Canberra.
Brian, you have something to say about that, Brian?
Yeah, I would like to talk to Kerry Redmond because my name is Brian Terry. I'm one of the three project managers working on this for EPA. I was the project manager back in 2011. And where do you live, Ms. Redmond? You gave us your address. Are you in Lemmo Estate by any chance?
Yes, that's Limo Estate.
Yeah, Lemmo Estate. What I want to point out to you that if you look at this map here, the Armstrong facility, and at the very top to the north is Guy Payne. And that little grassy area, yeah, go up a little bit north. But yeah, right there, that grassy area next to the, a little bit more to the east, a little bit more to the east.
Now, I will explain how the
Right there,
cleanup
that
at this site
grassy
are
area, we
divided.
were
At
concerned about
AWI, cleanup work
PCBs.
has been divided into
And we sampled PCBs along that area because we were concerned about whether PCBs were going further north into the Lemmo Estate subdivision. And we did not detect any PCBs. The other thing I would like to point out is that, you know, with Rocky Creek to the south of Armstrong and Macon Naval Ordnance Plant, when it rains, the surface water runoff runs toward the creek, away from the residential areas. So we don't think that the site has impacted Lemmo Estate or the other residential areas, and we have sample results to document that. So I hope that helped you understand.
So you're saying they did samples out there in Limo Estate and you didn't see anything? Is that what you're saying?
We sampled along Guy Payne Road to the north to make sure that PCBs had not moved into Lemmo Estate, correct?
I don't see, you know, we got a lot of health houses out there in that area. So, you know, they don't put a landfill out there over there by the paper company back over in there. And then too, I think they gonna open up now another landfill over there where they dumped them over there somewhere over there. Off the street you just called a few minutes ago.
It's supposed to be out there near the
So all that needs to be taken care of because a lot of people ain't saying that, they don't know what to say.
Okay.
So
Okay.
all that needs to be taken care of, the whole area. Because people having a problem out there, but they don't know what to say. They don't know what, you know how some people, they just don't know. They're ignorant to
Right. Okay.
So I wish you all to check that out.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been there for 30-some years, and I'm over the whole place out there. And I a lot of issue out there. And it still is in the ground for it. They said they didn't find nothing, but I believe they found something, but they just don't want to admit it. I might be wrong. If I am, y'all forgive me, but I still believe they found something.
Okay. Well, thank
a lot
you.
of health problems.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
lot of mold and everything out in that area.
Thank you, Ms. Redmond.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. And
Thank you for your input.
And Miss Redmond, if you should have my email address and Brian's email address and Anita's, please reach out to us with, you know, I think I wrote down the 4221, but you know, it'd be good to get the details of all the other locations that you're talking about. So that would be good to have.
Yes, ma'am. He was saying if you all the other locations like the landfill and everything you're talking about. So if you have a location of where they're talking, what you're talking about, then we can send that to them as well.
All right then.
Okay.
I appreciate y'all take care of it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank you for participating tonight. It's good hearing from you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. All right, Zari, do we have anything in the chat?
Nope, your chat is empty and I don't see any more raised hands.
More raised hands. Okay. All right. Well, I guess since everyone is.
Hey, Ron, could I say one
Sure.
one more thing before we adjourn? And I know you mentioned this, but I wanted to point out the site's webpage right there. I'd recommend writing that down, or you could simply Google Armstrong World Industries EPA, and that would show up. But we have uploaded countless documents on that website, and you can view the site history. You can review a lot of, if not all of the information that we just presented. We threw a lot at you tonight. So I'd recommend writing that email address down and going to that website to find some additional documents. But if you can't find what you want, feel free to email me or call me directly, and we'll try to best answer your questions.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So definitely go to our website. We will, like I said, during the remedial action part, we will send out another fact sheet to you all to kind of let you all know what's going on, so you know what to expect after we go through all your comments and concerns. And we will build our decision document called the record of decision. And then we will reach back out to you all when we get to that, when we get ready to do the remedial action. So that will be the next time we reach out to you all. But if y'all have any, like you said, if you have any questions or concerns, our information is here. Please feel free to reach out. Y'all should have my phone number, email address. All of it's on the website as well. So feel free to reach out to us with any other questions. We will, and we also have another site close to there too that we'll be reaching out to you all for another meeting soon. So you all stay in touch. If you want to be on our contact list, if you haven't, or if you know someone that wants to be on the contact list, please send me their contact information. I can put them on our contact list so that we can make sure that they get informed on our decisions and the things related to our work that we're doing in your community. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. Anita, you can stop presenting, and we'll adjourn for the evening. No other questions. Thank everyone for coming out to our meeting. This will end our proposed plan meeting for Armstrong World Industries OU1 and OU2 Superfund site in Macon, Georgia. Thank you again.